Hi everyone, welcome back to Right Now Math with Mrs. Schmidt. Today we are going to be learning about using keywords to write algebraic expressions. So let's jump into it and remind ourselves what the heck even are algebraic expressions. An algebraic expression is an expression that contains numbers, operations, and one or more variables. So now we ask ourselves, how would one ever come up with an algebraic expression, 7n plus 2? How would somebody come up with that? Well, normally it involves a situation and you're trying to solve a problem or predict something. However, there are going to be times when you think about your situation or your real life problem and you kind of summarize it down to a phrase. Once you have that phrase that kind of summarizes your situation, you can translate it into an algebraic expression. So let's take a look at what I'm talking about. In this chart, you will see a lot of familiar words that you've used over the years that indicate certain operations. You're probably familiar with a lot of these. So let's take a look at many of the words that we have used before that indicate addition. So we have the operation addition, straight away, add, plus, sum, more than, or increased by. And this isn't all of the words that indicate addition, but it is many of the words that indicate addition. So all of these phrases right here, if we translated them, math is a language that can be translated just like Spanish or German or French or Chinese. All those languages can be translated to say the same thing that you're speaking in English. Well, math is also a language, and you can take what you're saying and you can translate that into numbers and expressions. So if you say add 3 to a number, well, the first thing I notice is the word add indicates addition. 3 is our quantity that we know, but then they used a phrase, a number. Well, I don't know what number they're talking about. When you don't know what quantity you are dealing with, you use a variable in its place. So add 3 to a number. If you translated that to an algebraic expression, you would say n plus 3. Here's your number, and we are adding 3 to it. Or a number plus 3. So we don't know the number, and whenever you don't know the number, you're going to put a variable, n plus 3. The sum of a number and 3, n plus 3. 3 more than a number, or a number increased by 3. All of these phrases translate into an algebraic expression, n plus 3. And if they didn't give you a specific variable, you can choose the variable. So in this situation, they didn't actually say n, but we can see in our algebraic expression they used n. But sometimes they will give you a specific variable. So they might say x plus 3 or x increased by 3. And in that situation, if you are given a specific variable, you should use the variable that you were given. Let's look at words that typically indicate subtraction. So we have subtract, minus, difference, less than, decreased by, take away, and less. In all of these phrases, you can pause the video if you need to, read each phrase, would translate into x minus 12. And we're going to revisit subtraction momentarily. Let's continue with words that indicate the operation of multiplication. 2 times a number, 2 multiplied by a number, and the product of 2 and a number. Remember that if you are dealing with variables and you have a coefficient just touching that variable, the implied operation is multiplication. So you can write it 2m, that means multiplication. There we go. You could write 2 with a dot. That means multiplication. You also could write it 2 in parentheses m. Remember, because if a number is only touching the parentheses, then the indicated operation is multiplication. Moving on to division. We have 6 divided into a number divided by 6, and the quotient of a number in 6. All those words indicate division. And you can see the two ways of indicating division would be with our traditional division sign, or we can write division represented as a fraction. You could also use your division roof or bar. Less common when you're writing algebraic expressions, though, to use that method. So you may have noticed something kind of interesting off to the side over here where it says switch words. Well, let's talk about what that could possibly mean. I mentioned earlier on in the video that we were going to come back to talking about subtraction and division. And really these switch words really only make a division. They make a difference in questions that are dealing with subtraction and division. That is because in subtraction and division, order matters. For multiplication, if you said 3 times 2, you will get the same quantity as 2 times 3. The same thing with addition. 3 plus 2 is the same thing as 2 plus 3. However, with subtraction, if you do 10 minus 2, you don't get the same quantity as 2 minus 10. In division, if you do 10 divided by 2, that is not the same quantity as 2 divided by 10. So this is things that you know. We know that order matters in division and subtraction problems. So why am I bringing up switch words in relation to subtraction and division? Well, it's because if you see a word phrase that contains either of those switch words, that means you need to switch the order of how you're writing your expression. It takes the first quantity and switches it and puts it in the back. So let's find an example. Remember, all of these phrases translate to the algebraic expression that's over in our right-hand column. So if I see a number less 12, a number less 12, I'm just going to translate that a number less 12. Pretty straightforward. But what happens when you insert the word than? So we see up here, 12 less than a number. 12 less than a number. Well, a lot of us might not think, you might be saying, Mrs. Schmidt, I don't understand. Why is that a switch word? Well, I want you to think about it. Instead of using the phrase a number, put an actual number in there. If I said, okay, 12 less than 20, 12 less than 20, you would flip-flop it to be 20 take away 12. If you come down here and you said 20 less 12, 20 less 12, you would have 20 less 12. The word than is a switch word. You're going to take the front quantity and you are going to kind of catapult it to the back. You're going to switch the order of the first and the second quantity. So remember, there's a big difference between the word less and less than. Than is that catapult word. Now you can see up here, they used more than. And they did represent that with the 3 being switched to the back. However, think about it. It's a property of numbers, the commutative property. You know, addition and multiplication are commutative, which means you can flip-flop the order and you're still going to get the same quantity as your answer. So even though they did represent it up here, which is excellent, if you made a mistake and you didn't, you technically could still get the same answer. But can you if you don't flip-flop subtraction or division, are you going to get the same answer? Nope. It's going to mix up your entire word phrase. So let's take a look at our next switch word, from. If you see subtract 12 from a number, subtract 12 from a number, that's a switch word that's going to indicate that you need to switch 12 and the quantity of a number. So you get the number minus 12. Subtract 12 from a number. Lastly, I didn't write into inside my switch word star, but I definitely put it in there because you need to really read the whole sentence in context. But sometimes in certain contexts, the word into can also be a switch word. So let's go down to division. If you see 6 divided into a number, if you're taking 6 and you're dividing it into the number, you're starting with the number and dividing by 6. So if you said, another way that you could write this, that the word into would not be a switch word, would be a number divided into 6 pieces. So be careful with the word into. It can sometimes be a switch word, but you really need to read the phrase and think about it. So let's do some quick practice. All right. What you're going to do is you're going to identify the key word and think about what operation it indicates. The sum of 18 and 35. I know sum means addition, and so you would say 18 plus 35. Notice that's not an algebraic expression. That is just a number sentence because we knew both quantities. We didn't have to use a variable. 6 times 50. Again, that is just going to be 6 times 50. Another just numeric expression because we don't have a variable. 25 less than a number b. So in this situation, they did give us a variable b, so we're going to want to use that. I also noticed that I had a switch word, than. So I am going to write this b minus 25. I'm not going to write 25 minus b because of that than, which is my switch word. Number 4, a number x divided by 4. So they gave me a variable x divided by 4. Very good. The total of a number t and 11. So I know total indicates addition. So I will say t plus 11. Notice that when I wrote my variable t, I made it capital because if you make a lowercase t in algebra, that can look like your addition sign. So just be careful with that. 100 decreased by. Decreased indicates subtraction. So 100 decreased by a number k minus k. 35 less a number p. Be careful. They didn't say 35 less than. They just said 35 less a number p. So this is not a switch word situation because the switch word is than. So we're going to say 35 less p. And lastly, 12 subtracted from 35. Be careful. From is one of those switch words. So we are going to do 35 minus 12. Great job. Okay, what did we learn today? Today we learned how to identify key words that are going to indicate certain operations and or variables. So remember, if you see words that say like a number or a quantity and they're not telling you what number or what quantity, then you need to substitute in a variable to represent that unknown quantity. Watch out for those switch words. So some of the switch words we talked about were than, from, and sometimes into. So in this situation, I'll put a little star by into because that's a sometimes. So when you see the word into, you should really read the whole sentence and think about what it's saying, and it might be a switch word. All right, everybody, I hope that was helpful. Thanks for hanging in there. I know it was a long video, but let me know if you have any questions. Take it easy.